Welcome to the Longevity CEO podcast, where we dive into the science of living healthier, longer lives, share real-time stories of resilience, and discover actionable strategies to help you lead with impact and purpose. Because being the CEO of your health and longevity starts today. What's up, Jeff Johnston? How are you?
Hey, Greg, I'm beyond excited. When you asked me to be on the show, the Longevity CEO, I'm like, man, what a perfect alignment of two things that I'm really passionate about. One being a CEO. I've had the opportunity, a couple different, completely different like careers I'll talk about. And then longevity now has been something I've been and I'll say fairly recently, like within the last 5 years of my life, or even 7 years, we'll go back. And then meeting you, having a chance to have just some great conversation with you and learning about what you do. It's like when you asked me to be on the show, I'm like, dude, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's
I'm
rock
so
and
excited
roll.
that I was so stoked when you said yes. When I saw you on that call the other night, which was, by the way, is really cool. You and I met under some really cool circumstances, and we're very close to the same age, 57, 58. We're a couple of dudes, trying to find our way and just stay curious, as to what's out there. And when I met you, I had an experience that was really cool. And you and I talked about it before we hit the record button. And I'm like, we better hit record because this is too good. That was just really cool. And so I have this bonding experience, even though you and I haven't spent a lot of time together. We bonded in the way that we met in a really, really cool and what I think is a deep and spiritual way. So I'm really honored that you said yes, and that we're going to have this chat today, because I think it's going to be amazing.
And learning are like two big things. And when I speak to people, I talk about leaning into it to learn from it. The story that whatever you're going through is presented as an opportunity to become better or bitter. That's kind of like how I look at choices. And I'm fairly pragmatic. So when I went through, and I could talk about some of the life events I've had, and really all of us have a story. My story is my story. Your story is your story. But being vulnerable and sharing stories is really how we together collectively can get out of or move on from things that are presented in our lives as, things happen to you or things happen for you is a great way I like to leave all my talks. Is how you answer that question really frames and dictates the quality of the rest of your life. Are you a victim or are you a victor? I don't mean victor as in like, yay, I won, because I don't think you ever win like the mental wellness journey. You just keep evolving as a human. There's no moment you wake up and go, I won.
Yeah. No, right? Dude, I love this. You came out swinging. We've got to be better or bitter. Is that what you said? Be bitter or be better.
Yep.
And then things happen to you or for you. Right. I mean, those are two huge life lessons right out of the gate. So this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
As we dig in, let's just kick it off and go. Jeff Johnston, who are you? Tell us a little bit of the origin story. Give us a flavor for, where you come from, where you grew up, sort of what, and then we'll get into some of the more recent history.
Yeah. I believe that you can literally be reincarnated or reborn during life, that you don't have to have, an event happen like your death and then you get reincarnated. I think there's events in your life that you literally say, I'm a new person. That part of me is dead. How many times you heard people say that? The old Jeff is dead. When you lose 100 pounds, or maybe you got divorced or filed bankruptcy, and you go, okay, that part of me is dead. Well, in my case, going back previous to October 4th, 2016 is where I would say I died that day and was reborn. I was running a wealth management firm. So at age 23, I went to college, played a couple sports in college. I played golf and basketball. I was kind of a type A, competitive person. Saw the movie Wall Street, with Charlie Sheen and Michael Douglas, which was my favorite movie.
Awesome.
And I thought, well, I'm not that smart, first of all. So I thought, okay, I want to make money like that. So here's my naive, capitalistic 22-year-old mindset. So I'm going to go major about money. I want to go learn about money. And so I took finance classes after I went to my junior college for a couple of years, and graduated with a finance degree in '89, along with a psychology minor. Now, as it turned out, as I get a lot older, I never used my finance degree in my whole career as a wealth management. It was all psychology, people's healthy relationship with money. And now that's morphed into their relationship with alcohol, their relationship with suffering and pain and trauma and grief. It's like all about your relationship with whatever you want to replace.
With X,
with X. And so I got kind of thrown into the selling life insurance door to door. I hear people complain, kids, about not having jobs. I'm like, go try to sell cash value life insurance door to door with no internet, no cell phone, no fancy projections, no pitch deck. I didn't know what a pitch deck was. You kidding me? My mouth was my pitch deck. It's like, so knocked on doors, got slammed on, go get a case of beer with my friends at the bar, settle up, getting drunk, go out the next day, try to sell life insurance. Did that for many years, got my securities licenses. And then lo and behold, I wake up 33 years later. I'm the president and CEO of a company that I founded called Premier Investments of Iowa. We had 9 full-time employees, 7 staff. I managed about $800 million of AUM, which, in some scales, that's a very small amount. In Iowa, that was larger than a lot of banks had.
It's a lot of money.
Books. And I had a TV show, had a radio show for 15 years. Written some small guides and books and stuff on finance and stuff. So happily married my wife, Prudence, 3 boys, Seth, Ian, and Roman, big house, fast car, traveled. I'm setting you up for the fall. Those are the illusions. Now I realize I got duped into thinking these were important parts of my DNA, which now, it's just laughable how non-interested I'm in almost all that stuff. And so I was scooting along pretty good, pat myself on the back, and, age 50 hits. And, like a lot of people, you kind of think you got it all figured out, right? And as we all eventually reminded, sometimes death shows up in an order that you expect, like grandparent, parent, maybe a spouse, never a child. Death came into my life in the opposite direction. And October 4th, 2016, I got that call and became a member of a club that, no parent ever asked to join and one you can never leave. And everything changed. And we can talk about my process, like what I went through, and I'll talk about what I'm referring to as the episode, or that fateful day, and what led up to it, and the warnings and the signs that were there. But it's still hard to believe. I still at 58 look back and I think, man, all this has happened over 8 years.
What day was that? In October?
October 4th, 2016, just coming up.
So tell us what happens.
Well, my middle son Ian was my middle son Ian, highly competitive golfer, and I was taking him to districts that day, and I was dropping him off about 6:30 in the morning, and the team was called the bus barn. That's where all the parents dropped the kids off, because Ian was only a sophomore. And as I was taking his clubs out of the back of the car, like every dad and mom that does youth sports, I'm sure you've been involved in, or coaching.
3 sons, yeah.
There's just and golf's already a torturous game, because every shot's pins and needles. Your whole day can collapse over 4 hours on one swing or one putt. And as I was taking his clubs out, my phone rang, and I just kind of had my coffee in one hand. I looked at the phone, and I knew at 6:25 in the morning on a Tuesday that what I was going to be receiving was horrific news. I just didn't know how bad it was. I was told at that point that our oldest son, Seth, was found dead of an overdose. It's poisoning, but we call them overdoses, but they're poison. He was poisoned by fentanyl. And that was the end of a long, hellish, nightmarish road, Greg, that, ended with fentanyl, but that wasn't who he was. Started with Adderall, actually Strattera at 15, then Adderall at 16. And we could talk for 4 hours on my life's passion of fighting back against pathologizing normal human emotions and prescribing pills to kids to tell them that this is teaching them at a young age. This is how you handle your problems. You just take a pill, go take a bottle, drink a bottle, snort something, put something foreign in your body to deal with something that is a God's gift for you, something like envy or jealousy or sadness.
Yeah, it's feel better, anger. Don't get better.
Yeah, and they're warnings. These are all signals to your body that either you're on the right path, like happiness or joy or empathy, or you strayed a little bit and you need to come back. But we've just taken these signals from the human body, which is the most beautiful technology ever, as far as I know, in the universe, and we want to dumb it down and turn it into a cyborg. And you wonder why we lead the world in teen antidepressant prescriptions, and we also lead the world in teens most desperate, lost, and fearful of everything around them. We can blame it on COVID and social media, but it's so much deeper now, so much deeper than COVID and social media, as I'm finding out as I become a stronger advocate for kids. But that was really the first time, Greg, where death came into my life and went, knock, 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 Jeff.
So
I'm taking someone from you.
This is that Tuesday morning,
Yeah.
6:25 at 6:25 a.m.
Yeah.
You get that call. You find out about Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Look, this is any parent's worst nightmare. I mean, I'm trying to keep it together right now.
Oh, if
I have
could
3
hug
sons.
you right now, I would, man. I
mean, look,
feel
it's nobody watching this is gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, it's every parent's worst nightmare. But what in that moment? Can you take us there? What happens?
Yeah, So I'm not going to lie. I anticipated this type of call. When you're on this road, it's preventable yet predictable.
So there were some signs that
in my book, I wrote about telling Seth, you're either going to be dead or in jail. And he had just been released from prison. And then 60 days later, he was dead. So I was right on both counts, but I certainly didn't want to be right.
Yeah.
But I looked at Ian, because Ian's sitting there, and I was his coach. I was his golf coach. I was his, I was everything to him. He's 16. He's looking at me and he sees my eyes swelling up. And I'm thinking immediately, what do I say to him? I didn't say anything, man. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to take away from his day. I didn't want to take away from his team. I didn't want to ruin the moment he's worked so hard to. Seth wasn't coming back, man. He wasn't coming back. So why would I impede on his ability to enjoy a moment he's been looking for? So I got in my car and I thought, how am I going to tell my wife our son is dead? That's all I had in my mind. So Ian had to think as he got on the bus and went to the tournament, where's my dad? Where's my mom? Where are they? Where's my biggest fan? As it turned out, he missed a putt on the last hole and double bogeyed, and we missed state by 1 shot, which we had never made state in his school history. There's a reason I bring this up, because the next year you won't freaking believe what happened. It gives me chills when I tell this story to people. I got in my car and I didn't even tell Ian I loved him, man. Didn't even tell him good luck. I just had that absolute stoic.
I mean, come on.
Deer in the headlights.
It's the amount of presence you had in that moment to not.
Split second. I vacillated between, let's do the right thing. Tell him. And I thought, no, Seth's not coming back.
God, if you told me you fell to if you told me you fell to your knees and started sobbing like a child, I would be like, well, yeah. I mean, but the presence, I
had to hold it together for about 2 minutes, and then I took off and got my car, and I'm thinking, man, I got to tell my wife our son's dead. How am I going to do this? And I remember getting in my house, and my wife had, the orange and black on, and she had the, outfits on that all the moms wore at all the tournaments. And I just come around in the bedroom, and she's in the bathroom, and I can't talk. I mean, I can't talk. And I just get out, Seth's dead. And she just crumbled. And we both hit the ground. Like, I caught her and we both hit the ground. And I tell you, I don't remember much. I don't remember much. I just remember complete being immersed in every possible feeling you could have, from love to guilt to shame to anger to just everything. And then, you can imagine what that's like. My son's going off to his tournament. My other son's in 7th grade, thinking about what he's going to do when he gets off the bus. And so my wife and I got our courage together. We got in the car and we drove up to the hotel. And my son Ian was playing less than 2 miles from where Seth died that day. So as Ian was teeing off, I was at the hotel with the yellow tape, and Seth had already been taken away. And no one wanted to go into the room, and I wanted to go into the room, Greg. It was important to me to sear that memory in my brain of what my son's last, what he last saw. I came in the room, and there's just a chair sitting in the middle of the room, and there's this bed made, just impeccable bed made. He'd been in an apartment up there working, and on his bed was the belt in a tourniquet. This metaphor to me that became this duality of a belt can hold your pants up. It can also use to wrap around your arm and provide a tourniquet as you put heroin in your arm. And so it's this dual nature of things was presented to me as curiosity. What can I start learning from this? And I took the belt with me and carried it around with me when we did our tour around the country. I'll talk about that in a minute. And I really thought the belt was going to be courage and strength for me, but it wasn't. And we can discuss later, as you know, what ended up with the belt. But it was important for me after my wife and I were there, Greg. Now, how do I tell his brothers? How do I tell his brothers? So I called my dad. My dad's a retired doctor, just my just rock, my inspiration in my life. And I said, Dad, how do I tell Roman and Ian that Seth's dead? My dad said, Jeff, here's what you do. You tell them the truth, and then you shut your damn mouth. Because you like to solve everything. You're a fixer. You want to talk it through. You want to Dr. Phil them.
That's some wisdom for you there.
Yeah. My dad's still alive. He's 92. He's amazing. And so yeah, we got back from the hotel where Seth was at, and I sat in the living room just terrified for the boys to come home, and they both came in, and Ian had just 3-putted the last hole for double bogey, and they missed state, so he was like devastated. He was like, "Oh man, how do I tell my dad?" Because I wasn't there, And he told me, and I said, "Hey son, I got substantially worse news." And I said, "Your brother's dead." And man, they both just were 13 and 15, 3 sons, and their older brother, it's like the one they looked up to, even though he was struggling, they still looked up to him. And my middle son goes, I'll never forget this. He goes, "How'd he die, Dad? Drugs?" It's just like, man, are you kidding me?
They know.
These kids shouldn't have to know this, but they witness the devastation that this can have in a family, the collateral damage, the destruction, the deceit, the lying, the Xboxes that were sold, everything stolen out of the rooms from these little brothers that were used for drugs and alcohol. And then, you know what, Greg, I just had this moment in my head. I'm like, okay, dude, man up, the next thing you say is the most important word you're ever going to say in your life. And I call these dad moments. I talk when I keynote, I call these dad moments. I call these son moments, husband moments, where you get like 5 in your lifetime, 5, maybe 3. And not normally it's through something really unfortunate, tragic like death. But it's this athlete in me, like you're an athlete. This competitiveness is like, okay, dude, this is it, man. This is what you've been training for as a husband and as a dad. When you said I do, and you sat and watched your babies being born, these are the moments. This is it, man. Go. What are you going to say? I'm like, I don't know. What am I going to say, right? Where's the textbook? And I had this idea. I was just going to use the 2 roads story, just the old stoicism I learned about it in college. So I stood up, cleared my voice, and I said, boys, we have one of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred, and we'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of inspiration and motivation, and this will be the single greatest moment in our lives to make a difference in the lives of others. I'm on the second road. I ask you to join me. That's exactly what I frickin' said. No rehearse. I don't know where it came from. And I actually just thought to myself, dude, shut up, because you can't top that, And I did. I just stopped. And my 2 boys have done amazing things, Greg. Absolutely amazing things. And I'll finish that because there's a lot more to this story about me where I didn't do amazing things. But there's some amazing lessons in all these stories, that you can look back and learn from. But my 2 boys went on to be advocates. My middle son, Ian, founded Tribute Kicks, which is a resale shoe store. They did over $1 million of sales last year, and he's 23.
Awesome.
Donating 5% back to mental health organizations in honor of his brother. My younger son, Roman, came out as a young gay man, and he's an advocate for gay rights, and he's kind of runs in his own lane. But when we took our RV around the United States, 20,000 miles, 95 days in the summer of 2022, He spoke at panels, and and so these kids rolled up the sleeves and they did what Dad wanted them to do. But you know what, Greg? I didn't. I gave that heroic speech, and then I called my co-owner up and said, Brock, I need a year off, man. I'm in a bad place. My her name's Prudence. And I said, my wife and I need to stay home and work on me, and be here with the boys. And so the rest of the story is this. I've been an alcoholic for 32 years preceding this, and I was a compulsive gambler for over 20. So as you're running a wealth management firm and you're have a gambling addiction and being an alcoholic, these aren't things that anyone knew in the community. So I was this, Rotarian. I was kind of the anointed, pillar of the community, but I wasn't. It was a joke. I was I had a glass castle I had built that could easily crumble at any time if someone threw a rock at it. And death and alcohol and gambling were the rocks thrown at my castle. And I stayed home for that 14 months. I drank every single day, every day. And I like to say when I talk, I called every negative person I knew in my head and had the biggest pity party you could possibly have. Self-loathing, suffering, misery, every possible thing you can imagine. And it all came to a head again.
I'm just sitting here listening to this, and I'm trying. There's so much I want to say, but I'm just like, I don't want to interrupt this because
no, go ahead.
It's incredible. It's tragic. It's just. I'm thinking. I'm just rolling this in my head, and in two of the big moments, the minute you get the news, and in the moment you're going to tell your sons, your younger sons, you have this incredible presence, this incredible strength, and some might even call it divine. I mean, just you say the right things, you do the right things, you handle the situation, and then you spend 14 months spiraling, right? Is it just that? I used to use this analogy, like with our problems, it's like throwing, especially for, I'm a recovering alcoholic too. 7 years of sobriety, and I talk about
common.
7
years for me too.
You have no idea when some of the things you were saying earlier, I wanted to jump in and go, me too, but I wasn't about to interrupt you. But I use this analogy, like we throw these beer cans in the back seat, right? And these are our problems. These are our issues and our things that we don't want to face.
Yeah.
At some point, we're going to have to slam on the brakes, and all that stuff's coming back up into the front with us, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like you had this moment of presence, 2 moments. You're hiding this double life of being a gambling addict and an alcoholic, which, brother, I get. Yeah. And anybody on watching this will understand 100%.
Yep.
And for me, I hid it, but I thought I was doing a better job of hiding it than I actually was. I mean, like your close people know.
Yeah.
But maybe the extended community haven't really figured out that I was a train wreck. But tell me, you take time off, you don't have anything to do, your sons are doing their thing, and now you've got 14 months. Are you in isolation? Are you with Prudence? What?
Yeah. So Prudence and I were at home, and she was an alcoholic as well. Probably not as long as I was. She was 9 years younger than me, but she, all through the basically late 30s, 40s. So she had been battling alcoholism for a long time too. So we just stayed home and drank, her and I did. And what's really odd is that we didn't have any type of a confrontational marriage. We didn't have a violent marriage. There was no fighting. We just went to the bottle, and she had pills as well. She took a lot of pills.
You just escaped. You were numbing out.
We would get drunk, pass out, wake up, drink again. A lot of times just by ourselves, most of the times by ourselves. I got up to 196 pounds, I think it was.
What do you weigh right now?
144.
Yeah.
I was 155 my senior in high school. So, but I got up to this weight, and then December 24th of 17, so 14 months after Seth died, we had a condo down in Clearwater that I purchased for my son's golf, like professional career. He wanted to play pro, and I was not the best to play golf like 6 months of the year.
Right.
I was going to Florida anyway, so we just bought a condo down there, and it worked out great. But I'm down there on a bender with my wife over Christmas vacation, Ian and Roman and Prudence and I. And Greg, you mentioned divine intervention. I'm agnostic, so I'm willing to say anything could happen, but I'm not going to say that's what it was, but I'm open to anything. But I've been pretty much agnostic / atheist my whole life. And that's neither here nor there, but I'm on this fantastic spiritual journey with some source that keeps me really interested. Like
100%.
you and I know what I'm talking about. There's
Yep.
there's something going on. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah. Just stay curious,
I just got to keep trying to find out. But
yeah, 100%.
So, so on December 24th of 17, I'm looking in the mirror, got up in the morning, got really hungover. And dude, I just said, enough's enough. Stop kidding yourself. I've never tried to quit before. I just said enough's enough.
What day?
December 24th, 2017.
Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Okay.
And I saw my wife. She's 9 years younger than me. She was looking 9 years older than me. The grief was just killing her. It was killing me. I have to think the two boys were witnessing this destruction of this, fantastic family that was like your Leave It to Beaver family, like just 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And I just looked in the mirror and stopped. And I've never had a drop since. And it's been arguably the easiest thing I've done in my life. I've been to meetings. I go support people. I'm pragmatic. I don't consider myself sober because that implies I'm in some mythical fight with some demon. I just don't drink.
Jeff, tell me again what you said when you looked in the mirror.
Enough's enough.
You and I have, I'm getting a little bit like, this is crazy.
Well, I know we shared some of this when we first met, but you're right. We're like brothers from another mother.
God, it's all coming back to me now when you're telling me this story and I'm sitting here. I did too. It was September 5th of 2017. And it was, I got up and Hurricane Harvey had come through Houston and soaked it for like 4 or 5 days or whatever it was. I stayed passed out drunk through the whole thing. And I was, I would have been a much bigger liability to my family than an asset. Like had we didn't flood and we didn't lose power. The rest of the city, meanwhile, it was one of the worst that's ever hit Houston. And so I woke up that day and I looked in the mirror and I said, not today. And I call these not today moments. Like you said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I said not today. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
Different words.
Yeah.
But I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, not today. And it's just, I haven't taken a drink since. We know, when when, you're beat. But I call them not today moments. And whether you're trying to take your life back from addiction or from toxic relationships, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You just sort of reach that point and you're like, not today. So I love enough is enough. That'd be great on a t-shirt. Enough.
I know. It's just, I just, and then, honestly, I noticed Prudence just really, her weight had dropped and she just looked, older. And, I thought, well, God, if I can't save Seth because he's not here anymore, and I don't want to lose my wife, maybe I lead by example, which is if I have to take anything to my grave, because I've pretty much shed all guilt and shame about Seth's death because I did everything that I could. The thing I didn't do is I could have stopped drinking. I was still a full alcoholic when he was struggling, and I probably could have been a lot better. But, the shame and guilt ship has been, I sank that a long time ago. So
Good.
I'm making amends for Seth today.
Yeah.
It's all a dad can do, right? And so
Ian and Roman are 14 and 16 at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So very impressionable. And when I wrote my book, I found out that the hardest thing, the toughest obstacle for a adolescent is losing a sibling over a parent. Is losing a brother or sister.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize this till I wrote my book. And I did a lot of research in bereavement and all that stuff. And so then on that, one of the reasons I did quit too is I thought, okay, now I've got to be a better dad and a husband, and but as life did again for me, happened for me, not to me. Death comes into my life as an opportunity to become better, not bitter, knocking on the door. Hey, Jeff, I'm taking someone else you care about. What are you going to do about it now? So my beautiful wife of 21 years died of alcoholism at the age of 46, pill bottles, next to her bed. Just
grief.
You said a word I do want to comment on because I appreciate the empathy and the care of the word tragic. This is not tragic. Tragic is a baby drowning in a pool. Your mom getting hit by a drunk driver. Something like addiction is unfortunate and unnecessary. but it's preventable and predictable. Baby drownings aren't preventable. They may be predictable, but they're not they may be preventable, but not predictable. I like to say in my situation that what happened in my life is not tragic. And I appreciate when people say it. I accept it. But in this context, I
No,
thought
I love the distinction, man.
I don't accept tragedy because I don't. There was lots of ways this could have been avoided. Me, them, society, laws. Yeah, fentanyl test strips were illegal in Iowa at this time. Maybe if my son was using together, like we promote designated drivers, why the hell don't we let people struggling with drugs get high with another friend that isn't doing drugs so they could have a Narcan, they could test the heroin and fentanyl. But there's such a stigma around this that you have to use alone in a seedy hotel room and then you end up dying. Why? I don't get it. So I've never done drugs in my entire lifetime, never smoked pot. So I couldn't relate to that, but I had all the other addiction issues, I had all the other, problems. But we just take those struggling with drugs and alcohol and kind of put them in this box, like they're the problem child,
So let me ask a couple, because again, I've got all these questions and I'm sitting there thinking about Prudence now. She was 46.
Yeah.
How long after Seth's death did she pass?
She died on June 29th of 2021. And ironically, it was a day after my youngest son's 18th birthday. So the rest of his life, he has his birthday and then his mom's death date. And I'm reframing that for him as an opportunity, though. I said that day every year, you have to go do something heroic for somebody else. Do something to change someone's life. Don't sit around worrying about your mom. She ain't coming back. So again, that's another situation where you can use reframing to benefit you and other people. But yeah, so it's been October of 16 and then 21. So what was that? 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking of longevity, right? We just longevity CEO, we talk about longevity and I always say it's a big word, like Minsky called artificial intelligence or AI a suitcase word. I think longevity is too, because it can mean a lot of things. A lot of times it just means living healthier, longer, or and what this show kind of talks about the intersection of science and motivation, the why, right? And when you've gone through what you went through, right? The loss, I stopped myself from saying tragic.
Yeah,
the loss.
I accept it though. I love you like a brother, but I'm
just
trying to tell people
I love that distinction.
Yeah,
I
do.
Not
tragic. Yeah.
I really do. But you lose your son, your oldest son. You lose your wife. You've got these vices and these addictions that you're going through. I know you to be a person who is a seeker, a person who is rediscovering and going, deeper into Jeff and purpose and meaning and stuff like that. And I think that's so critical because a lot of people can hit that wall and give up. A lot of people can hit that wall. And if they don't give up, they just sort of coast, they just stay dead inside. They exist. I've met parents, I've got a lot of trauma in my life.
I bet you do. Yeah.
And you've got those two road moments, right? Where looks, man, I stayed numb and escaping for many, many years. When at first at 12, my biological father took his own life. He killed himself after holding me at gunpoint on our front porch. I was on my knees when I was 12. And I thought that was it. I thought it was over.
Man.
And that was my last day. He was also my little league baseball coach. And so the feelings of betrayal, the feelings of, all this stuff come rushing in, and he would drive off. I would escape. He would drive off. And sometime over that weekend, he would take his own life. And we had a baseball game on Monday and we hadn't heard from him. So my mom was working a bunch of jobs or not a bunch, 2. And we didn't know if he was going to pick me up. So, you sort of find out in the middle of the school day that
you're 12.
Yeah, I was 12.
Wow.
And he was an alcoholic that stayed active. He had bouts of sobriety. He would kind of go sober for a while, but he got out on some painkillers and stuff. And at the end, I always say he's one of those alcoholics that they make movies about, right? Yeah. I mean, he was pretty rugged. He was a tall, kind of mean guy from East Texas, and had that blue collar spirit and temper. But look, and back then we didn't really know therapy. We just didn't. You just sort of kind of dealt with it, and hey, this happened. But I could see the patterns already. I wound up graduating from a military school in Harlingen, Texas, my junior and senior year of high school. This after I got a great shot at Dad 2.0, Jim, who became my stepfather and adopted me, and I took his last name, was a hero, man. The guy was a successful real estate developer. He was an athlete. He was not an alcoholic. He was successful. And, I got to go, I went from public pools and public schools to country clubs and summer camps and tennis and golf lessons and private schools and stuff. Any kid on the planet is on his knees with gratitude for this type of transition, right? Except me. I started rebelling, and I did it with drugs and alcohol, and escaped and smoked a lot of pot and drank a lot of booze, and then wound up in a military school to try to get my act together. And thank God that happened, because I think it saved my life. My dad came through the door, felt like it was knocking it off the hinges one morning at 5:45. And he said, "Get up, put on a suit, and be downstairs in 15 minutes." Yeah. And he looked
see movies
serious.
about stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, and I did. I was down there in 14 minutes. And we got to the airport and jumped on a Southwest flight down to Harlingen from Houston. And before we did, he opened the trunk, and there was a briefcase that had some pot in it. And he's like, "Do you want to take this with us?" And I was like, "I don't think that's a good idea." And so we do the tour of the military school and come home. And that evening, of course, with, all this fear struck into me, I do what, the reasonable thing. I raise the window and jump out of the second story and run away. Right. Like an asshole.
Yeah.
And
I'm probably doing the same thing if I'm you too.
I mean, it's just, and so when you're talking about escaping and numbing and spiraling and all this stuff, man, if you don't have people in our lives and tools, and awareness, and look, sometimes I think that had I not had, some of these people like my dad in my life that sort of rescued me, if you will, I'm not here today. I'm not, or if I am, I'm a lot deader inside and just sort of coasting. But then I have 3 sons and a daughter as well, but I have them to think of, and cycles to break and things like that. And that's the choice that I made and the road that I went down. So I want to hear, enough is enough. You wake up, tell me on that day versus when Prudence, and I want to get that timeline kind of square and what happens there. And then you get that second.
Yeah. So I quit on 17, and then she died in 21. So there was a gap there where I had not been drinking at all.
Had she continued to drink?
Oh yeah. Terribly. And to the point where I bought her a house because I couldn't have the alcohol around the boys. So I bought her a house across the street from her mom and dad. And I took Ian and Roman, and the house that we built together, my whole family, I sold it and moved into, half the size. So everything in my life is just in half. Literally, my family's in half, and my house, everything's in half. And it was intentional about having kind of less is more, like addition by subtraction. Like I chased that add, and now it's like I lost 2 people I really care about, so I don't really need all this other stuff. And actually, in hindsight, it's been really great, Greg, because I've been able to manage myself, my mental health better. But so when my wife died, there's a little bit more to this story to get to where I'm at.
Okay.
My mom died 4 months later, the day after my 14-year-old cat was put down. So I had this massive cloud of like death following me, as I thought I did. Reality was just timing. We're all going to die. It's not always in some creative order. I just had a lot of it lumped in a block of time. It just happened to be my time to experience a lot of opportunities to get better. That's how I'm presenting this to everybody watching this. I didn't think that way initially, but now I've had the ability to work on myself, and I can talk about my daily routine and what I do to stay in this lane. Because what happened that Christmas after my wife died was the most terrifying, most enlightening experience I've ever had in my entire lifetime. And what happened was that Christmas, so my wife died in June, mom died in November, and then Christmas hits, and I'm by myself. 2 boys are out on Christmas party stuff. They're younger, and I'm in my house now. So it's been June, July, August. It's been a while after my wife passed away, a few months, and there was these, I call them the 7 boxes of doom. that I had, that she had down in her garage when she moved out. And they were boxes that we had together, but when she moved out, it was pretty quick and haphazard, and we weren't going to get divorced or anything. I just couldn't have her around the boys. We had to get separated. So I thought I'd just take these boxes that were down in the basement, give them in a garage, and I'd take them back, when we got back together or whatever. And the boxes ended up in my living room. And dude, I walked by these boxes like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally that Christmas, I just on a whim thought, they ain't going to walk out of here by themselves. Oh, let me see what's in them. So I pulled up a chair. It was on a Friday, like 5:00. Nobody's home. I pull up a chair. I open up the first box, and the first box I pull out, and I should have known this. What else is going to be in these boxes, right? It was just pictures of Seth, just coaching pictures and basketball pictures and just proms and homecomings. And I went from, my son teases me now, Ian, because I have the Living Undeterred was my tour around the country. So he said, Dad, you went from living undeterred to living under a turd. That's like a family joke. But I really did. I went from here to
Sounds
here.
Like one of my sons.
Quickly, like really quickly. And, just, it got to the point where I shut my phone off, took my computer. I just didn't want to talk to anybody. Like if you would have called me or tried to reach me and I looked and it said, Greg, I wouldn't have taken it, because as lonely as I was feeling, I knew I wasn't alone because I had people that cared about me, but I needed some time to just sit in it. So I went to the second box, and it was our wedding. It was just like my beautiful wife, and that's them both behind me. And just all these pictures of the kids being born, our trips to Europe, and all the I just went again another notch down. Took my computer, threw it across the room, broke it, and I don't remember the next 2 days. But here's what I do remember: sitting in my closet, opening up my safe. I never made it past 2 boxes. Sat in my closet, opened up my safe, got my gun out, put it to my head, and I got the 3 seconds for almost a full day. So I would just start over. I'd say 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and I'd get the 3, and I couldn't do it. So and I'm going to say this, and this goes against every like suicidal talk you'd hear, but I'm just going to say it because I don't care. I want to be authentic with people. I thought I was courageous getting that far. I think taking your life, there's something really in my, I can only speak for me, being that close to suicide was so courageous for me, because I never had suicidal ideation thought up to that point after all I'd been through. And I would start over, and I'd get to 10, and I'd go back to 3. And I kept thinking about the suits behind me, these expensive suits I had in my closet, and the mess it would leave. And dude, as something as stupid as that could have been what kept me from pulling the trigger. I didn't want to mess up the suits. And then I kept thinking about Ian and Roman. I kept thinking, man, these guys, man, they lost their brother, their mom, and now their dad. It's like the deaths of despair are suicide, alcohol, and overdose. 835 Americans a day die. 40 an hour. Okay, in the United States alone. And my boys are going to have a loss of each one: suicide, alcohol, and overdose. I said, I can't do that to them. So it became less about me.
You're thinking of that in that moment?
Oh yeah, in the moment. And dude, I was not afraid of dying. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to live. I did not want to die, but I didn't have any fear of death, because I don't believe really in the afterlife. So I thought I would just extinguish the candle and I'd be done. I didn't worry about going to hell or anything like that, because I don't really believe in that. And so for me, it was pretty simple as an agnostic person. It was just turn off the lights. Party's over. I'm done.
I got to jump in here because I wanted this. You talked about taking your own life, suicide, and courageous, being courageous, and the way you looked at it.
I hate to say it that way, because I know everybody out there is going to say, don't say that, Jeff. It's not courageous. It's like, this is my story.
It's 100%. And I love that you said, look, I'm just going to be authentic. People can disagree. We can disagree without being disagreeable.
Right.
But I have to jump in and say something here, because I need to share, another event in my life. On October 7th, 2010, I got a phone call. I'm driving from Austin to Dallas, and I told you, I alluded to my stepfather, Jim. He adopted me. I took his name. He became my best friend, my hero, my mentor. He was my person. After being an asshole as a teenager, I wound up appreciating and valuing all the gifts that he had given to me and who he was in my life. And we became really, really close. Very, very, he was my best friend. On October 7th, 2010, I'm in my car. I'm driving between Austin and Dallas, and my phone rings. And the person on the other end of the line is sobbing and inconsolable and just tears and wailing. And I can make out that he's dead. And I'm closer to Dallas than I am to Austin. So I go to Dallas, park at the car, get on a Southwest flight, and fly to Houston. And I'm a mess. I'm a wreck on this. I'm a wreck in the line waiting to get on. I'm a wreck in my seat. I sat at the window and turned to the window, and I'm trying to keep it together. Then I lose it. And the poor person next to me is just trying to figure out what, this poor guy, right? You don't know what to do with me. And I find out that morning he got up, they lived in a condo, and he took the cars and he washed them and filled them up and stopped at the grocery store and he restocked the pantry. And he went around the apartment, the condo, and put 5x7 index cards in plants saying, water this one twice a week, water this one 3 times a week. And
preparing.
Then he got into his Tahoe, drove across the street to a rented storage unit, raised the door, went inside, closed it behind him, and sat down and took his own life and put a gun. And now, the reason I tell that story right here in the middle of yours and to interrupt is there were two vastly different circumstances, but the same outcome. Yes. So my biological father, Bill, was a bad alcoholic, an abusive bad alcoholic, and terrorized us. And when he took his own life under a completely different set of circumstances, Jim was an incredible human whose health was failing and he didn't want to be a burden on the rest of us. And he had he didn't feel like there were any other options left for him.
Wow.
And in a way, I can understand when you say it can be a courageous act, because in his mind,
I see where you're tying all that together now.
As hard as it was on us and for me and the loss and everything else, in his mind, there was nothing punitive or self-serve. It was almost a little selfless, right? And there may be people out there that argue that.
No, I agree. I felt kind of that way too.
So I had to drop that in there, because when you said that, I'm like, yes. And if you have a person I've experienced it twice, both father figures, and under extremely different circumstances.
I've never heard that before from any advocate or anybody I've ever talked with that went through what you went through.
And I always say this, man, until you've walked a mile,
I know,
you're just reading about it or something. But anyway,
I mean, in a way, you've walked in my shoes and I've walked in yours, and
our overlap is
people
eerie.
Listening to this are nodding and going, yeah, it's like, okay, so I guess the $1 million question is, what do we do now? Right. That's the $1 million question, or the longevity question, right?
We're two guys, who, like you said, a couple of times, if I understand, you get down to the countdown to 3 and you put all these things go through your head. You don't want to mess up the suits, which there's a lot of people chuckle at that.
Terrible.
But they'll also kind of,
and I haven't moved the suits. They're reminding me. It's like a memorial of my, I died that day. That's another reincarnation day for me. I've had 3, but I saved that stuff there to remind me when I go into my closet that's a sacred area, because that's where my life was reborn again, not where I could have died, because that's negative, but where my life was reborn. So I reframed, there is not an event that can happen in anyone's life that cannot be reframed, and something, glorious can come from it.
And the importance of that, you cannot be overstated.
Right.
It is a mindset. You call it reframing. It is a mindset perspective. And when I talk about health and longevity, it's the same thing.
Yes.
If you sit down and give up.
You've heard the stories that people had cancer and they willed it away, or they had something else and they've just focused on, I'm not talking about positive toxicity. But you just say, oh, hey, Greg, I'm happy today. My cat died. I'm happy today. It's like, come on, really? No, you're not a cyborg. It's okay. Feel like shit, cry, hit a wall. But you've got to figure out a way to trick your lizard brain as something that this is an opportunity to become better. Because if it doesn't, then you become bitter. And that's when you start going backwards and you die prematurely. And I want to live to be 100. And I ain't going to do it by drinking. I'm not going to do it by eating pizza every night. I'm not going to do it by lying to people. I'm not going to do it by having a lot of negative thoughts. I mean, I have negative thoughts. I journal now, which helps me a lot, tremendously, journaling. But there's just something about your body's ability to give you warnings when you are in a situation where you need to be attentive to those symptoms, to those
signals,
yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Signal. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. And I talk a lot about the reframing of aging, right?
Yeah.
I tell people the definition of aging that I like, and it's pretty basic, is that it's the functional decline of this living organism over a period of time. And we have a lot of talk about the period of time part, right? Like, hey, I want to go to 100, or I want to go to 150, or whatever.
Oh,
200.
yeah.
But where I try to refocus is what we have to do. And if we're going to achieve those milestones, then we have to mitigate the functional decline, right?
Yes.
We functionally decline in our cognition and our mobility and our immune function and vascular function, sexual wellness, aesthetics, all of it starts to functionally decline over this time period. And if we can't slow and reverse that part, the functional decline, then the period of time part doesn't matter, because nobody's signing up for living to 100 if you can't remember why you went in the kitchen, and you're not independent.
Yep.
You don't have mobility.
Yep.
And B, you're never going to extend the lifespan potential until we can slow and reverse the functional decline. And I think that's where things are. And so when you just put that you reframe it, and you just say, aging isn't this inevitable thing, right? Where we just spend the last 10, 12 years of our life sick and chronically ill.
That's what they want us to believe.
Well, look, it's how it's been,
That's how money, that's how follow the money with Big Pharma. They don't want you to get healthy. They prefer that you're a client for life. And that's why
they want you to feel better, don't get better.
Drugs, that's like a lifelong client.
That's it. Feel better, don't get better. And you feel better if you keep taking the pill. And look, that's the model, right? Yeah. And the more we can sort of keep you sick and on pills and in hospitals, I mean, that's a big economic engine in this country. And it's not conspiracy and sour grapes and bitterness. It's just the way things are, right? And I love that you said, man, so many nuggets in here. There's wisdom, the things, the way you've reframed. This is an opportunity for me, not something that happened to me. And
it takes a lot of work, Greg. It's not. I mean,
it takes a lot of work.
Meeting you when I met you, that stage of my life was the universe saying, "Hey, Jeff, we got you this time." Things conspired against you for a while there, but now things are kind of working in your favor. So I'm having these people placed in my life at the right time. So like our youth mental wellness app we launched a year ago, that's like my vision. That's like my passion, where I spend the rest of my life, my last dollar, my last breath will be on a hill where I will die, and it'll be helping kids, young adults, improve their mental wellness. And
I love that.
Yeah. So we did it through a combination of, and I come from a financial planning background. I know we're a little limited on time, so I wanted to throw that out there at the end here, but
brother, we'll go until we're done.
Don't say that, dude.
We'll go until we're done.
I'm like you. I got what faster. What you said, something like
stop and go fast.
Dude, that's me. I love it.
I don't have a middle gear.
I don't either. There's no off. It's like, where's off? But I got to thinking, okay, how do I take financial planning and youth mental wellness and find a common ground? It's like, good luck with that, right? Well, there is a common ground, and where it is in the planning. It's in the lack of planning. And so you look at adults with their money, and most adults are reactionary. They want to go on vacation. They set aside some money. They want to plan for retirement. They set aside in a 401k. But if you really sat down and looked at everything, your taxes, your trusts, your wills, your philanthropy, your deductions, your tax-free income, your income streams, your risk level, your risk profile, look at all these things and put it together. And the result will tell you where your money should be invested. Like, what's your risk aversion? There's so many cognitive biases that come into play with money that there's a lot of, I started digging into it going, okay, my psychology minor did me much better than my finance major in investments. Maybe my psychology minor will help me with youth mental wellness. So it was a very natural thing for me to build out this idea of the app. So what we did with our app Brighton is we're introducing 2.56 billion humans, so which is the largest generation of human history, Gen Z, 14 to 26. This idea of mental wellness planning, and our asset classes, instead of stocks, bonds, and real estate, are health, wealth, and purpose. So if I could design the perfect young adult and I wanted to diversify their mental wellness before we get into treatment, where would I make my best bets? Where would I invest my time and money and my energy? It would be developing curriculum and processes where they could learn, get higher self-confidence in those areas of health, wealth, and purpose. So there's 25,000 mental health apps on the market. There's not one that has the intersection of these three combined in a way that we've done it. And how this happened, it was like a long process. And we're excited what we built. We're launched last year, so September 1 this year will be our first year. We soft launched, Greg, so we didn't do a big launch. We're in like 12 countries. I think we have 1,000 thrivers on our app. So we don't call our kids users. I don't really like that word. So we call them thrivers. So our whole idea is we're not treatment. We need treatment, but you know what that's done to our kids today. I don't want to take your kid, build an app, introduce them to a doctor so they can buy a bottle of Prozac.
Yeah.
That's a drug dealer. That's what the Mexican drug cartels are doing. I'm trying to fight against that with fentanyl being across the border. So it's hypocritical, but that's where the money is. That's where VC wanted me to go. When I was getting ideas how to build the app, everyone's like, "Oh, Jeff, you got to build a treatment." I don't want to do that. I did Angry Fentanyl Dad. I don't want to do that. Prevention is too fear-based. So if I did the schools, talked to schools about Seth, had the pictures, cried, and I'd sit in my car and go, "That's just not inspiring. There's no love in this message." And so prevention to me is too fear-based. So we went a little bit further upstream and we invented a new category called empowered mental wellness. So you have treatment, that's great. We need it. We have prevention, that's great. But we are about empowerment. And I think if you combine those three, empowerment, prevention, treatment, and we have all really functional systems set up, whether they're apps or whatever, I think we can right this sinking ship that is the Gen Z mental health crisis that we have today. That is, it's an epidemic of epic proportions, to be honest with you. We've never seen a generation this lost, this drugged up, this desperate, this fearful of everything out there in human history. Of most ironic thing, Greg, is we have more abundance than any civilization. United States of America, we have more abundance than in ever. But I think our kids are the most lost of any country of abundance. I'm not talking third world countries and stuff like that.
I mean, it's telling us something, right?
It is.
And Brighton, I went up to the website, the other day after you and I talked. I knew you were coming on and checked it out. Hey, it's well done. I love the vision. I love the way you articulated it. It's spelled differently, so I want to make sure everybody can go find it.
And our new upgrades are coming in 5 days. And the app that's out, the app out there now is antiquated and it's old, and we haven't made any updates in a while. But the new app coming is jaw dropping, and we're really excited. But Brighton is spelled Brightn, and I'll just tell your listeners and followers where the name came from, which really is a it tops this all off for me. So when Seth died, his daughter was born. And she's 7.5, and she's the love of my life. And I'm so fortunate to have something come from something so bad. So many parents have lost kids and they don't have a child, and her name is Brighton, and it's spelled with an O. And every time I see her, I get on one knee and I said, "Brighton, you brighten my life. You brighten my heart. And your dad is so damn proud of you right now." And it's not that I'm not going to let her grow up to be a victim, because that's a choice she's going to have to make. But I'm going to do everything in my power that she's well equipped to use what has happened in her life so she can do amazing things and have the best lived experience she possibly have. That's like my ambition as grandfather.
That's a plot twist I didn't see coming. You just dropped that in there, that sets, I didn't.
Yeah.
And wow.
He would have been a great dad. Yeah, I think Seth, and I think he was sure it was his, but in that culture, there's a lot of, things going around when you're doing drugs and relationships ending and people hooking up. So I think he was pretty sure that was his child, but he died not knowing 100%. And I always wonder that, had he known, maybe he wouldn't have done heroin. Maybe he would have. Addiction's so strong, it transcends a lot of relationships. So I'm just naive to think maybe he wouldn't have. But he wasn't trying to die, Greg. He was just trying to get high.
Yeah.
Fentanyl.
No. I mean,
it wasn't heroin that killed him. It was fentanyl.
I tell people that I talk to or struggle, mentor, look, it will take everything you love from you and then it will kill you.
Yeah.
This is a cruel, vicious
that's a
mistress
good way to put it.
That, people say, yeah, it's going to kill you. Yeah. But before it does, it will take everything you love, everything you hold dear, everything you value and cherish. It will take it from you and then it will kill you. That's the stakes. That's what we're playing with here. You've seen it firsthand in the most horrific way. I've seen it, and there's millions of other people out there. So there's no way to overstate it. There's no way to beat the drum too loudly. I love what you're doing. I love that, the way I think about this is you've reframed, you found your why. I love, you said, I'll die on that hill, trying to bring youth mental wellness to as many people as possible, empowered youth mental wellness to as many people as possible. That's your why. And when we have our whys, when we are purpose driven, and we start to realize, hey, I want to get up and go do this every day. This is something I'm passionate about. It's driving me. I got to do it. I got to help as many people as possible. And you're going to start taking good care of yourself, and you're going to start thinking about other things and being mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally well, so that you can go carry out your mission. And I always tell people, you got to find your why. People think, oh, I want to get out of pain, or I want to do this. You've been living in pain 10 years. Why is today the day? It's not the reason. It's not your why. It may suck, but it's not your why. And then
you said that so well. So well, because my kids will ask me sometimes, like on a Friday at like 7:00 at night, Dad, why are you going down and running on your elliptical? And I always say to you when I'm going down the stairs, because I don't want to die.
There you go.
You just said that. I 100%. don't run to look in the mirror to go, I'm muscular. I don't really care about my physical appearance to other people. I do, but it's like, that's not my reason why I work out. I want to be able to see Brighton get married.
Yeah.
I want to be able to see her have kids. I want to see my son just got married. Ian just got married. My wife will never be able to see their children or Seth. And it's like, if anything, I want to see it for them.
Yeah.
Through my eyes. And if there is an afterlife and they're waiting for me, then I can tell them about all this stuff, It's like, where's the downside? Show me the downside. I'm like an investment guy. It's like, show me the risk,
Yeah.
What risk is there taking care of your health?
None.
Zero.
None. And I saw this thing the other day and people were saying, well, look, if you could tack on 30 or 40 more years to the average lifespan today in good health, what would you do? And so there's some really surprising answers, and, everything from learn multiple languages to start a new career, or go back to school and get another degree and have a second, like there's all kinds of really cool things. And I'm like, if you don't have the mindset that this is possible, then the technology, the science, the medicine, the breakthroughs aren't going to happen. So we got to, some people have to, right? I always say this, what I love is when you reframe, big ideas and first, every idea was crazy the day before the breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
Every big idea was crazy the day before the breakthrough.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, Elon Musk was always going to Mars. He needed a rocket to get there.
Yeah.
Right? So he built a space company.
He just started that, I'm at Mars. I'm going to work my way backwards.
I need a rocket. And so these are the kinds of visions and the way that we have to think in terms of possibility. And then I always, I have this thing, I mentioned it to you on our sort of pre-talk before we hit record, but it's called the legacy equation. And the legacy equation is really, we think of legacy often like monuments and wealth and achievements and things like that. But I argue a legacy is these daily habits and these daily routines and the way we show up and live, like you're doing now. You've taken this loss, you've taken, this horrible events in your life and you've turned it into that's legacy, because you get up every day and you go, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, you named it after Brighton. I love that.
Mm.
And for me, it's, I get up and take care of myself because I don't know what's coming, but I know that I want to be here when it does get here, right?
Sure.
Whatever it is and whatever it looks like. And legacy is if I show up with love and honesty and gratitude and humility and all these other good things, then I got a pretty good shot that day at trying to live into my why and be here for tomorrow, so that whatever happens, whatever comes my way, then I'm ready. I'm here. And like you, I've got 4 children. I've got 3 sons and a daughter. I want to see I want to see them grow up and get married and have kids. And we are an adventurous crew. We like sailing across the oceans. We like motorcycling across the US. We like, we do all kind of fun and snowboarding and all that stuff. And I'm 57 and I'm fit, man. And I work hard at it, but I want to be at 77. I want those cats still chasing me, and not, I don't want to be reading or watching pictures or videos rather about their adventures. I want to be in the pictures and the videos with them on those adventures. And that's just one of my whys. There doesn't have to just be one, right? There's a bunch. So
you talked a little bit about purpose, and that seems to be kind of, a word like empowerment that kind of gets thrown around haphazardly. But if you think about purpose, one question I get a lot, Greg, from especially younger people is, what is purpose? Does it reveal itself through some episode in your life, or do you go find it? And, in my case, it was revealed to me through death. I have a quote that was on the back. It's on the back of my t-shirts and stuff. And we have them, it's my first slide in all my keynote talks. It's a real simple quote. It's my life statement. It's called my ULS, my unique life statement. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So the 3 Ps. And so when I talk to kids at high schools or heck, for that matter, adults, if you want to try to see what your purpose is, reverse that. So purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So think of something personal. So in your case, your dad, your stepdad, and other things you mentioned, childhood a couple of times. You didn't get specific, but maybe that was it. Maybe it was something else, but something personal in your life. So, maybe your dad has Alzheimer's, maybe breast cancer. Normally most nonprofits are spawned from something where the founder had some personal event.
Sure.
So that's like a no-brainer. So something personal. Then the next thing is the purpose becomes passion. So the next word is passion. Okay, how do you get passion? Well, start a podcast. So I started a podcast called Living Undeterred. That was the name of my podcast. I did a tour. I wrote a book. I collaborated with people on any possible thing I could get. I went to conferences. I went to webinars. So I took that personal thing in my life, the death of 2 people I care about immensely, and I immersed myself in advocacy, not being an activist. It's a massive difference. I started off as a fentanyl activist. That was too tiring for me. So I became an empowerment advocate versus activist. And in doing so, my purpose just was revealed to me. So purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. So that's a great creative exercise that we've got on the app that we're talking to kids, because I think a lot of kids, you and I have the benefit of, even though there's some horrific events in our lives, but we learn from them. We have situations, we have experience and wisdom. A 17-year-old, their wisdom may be a month, it could be a year. They don't have all that pool to tap from like we do. We have this massive well of good and bad things. So we have that benefit of hindsight. And so how do you introduce the idea like purpose to a 15-year-old that's going to go, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean, Dad? What you found your purpose because, but I'm 15. I'm thinking about prom,
Yeah.
They don't have any like length of time. So I think the longevity project you're on really aligns well with what we're doing with Brighton, because ultimately these young adults are going to get to that point where they're going to start thinking about longevity. Right now, longevity is the weekend. They don't have like time frames like we have, but they will. So the sooner we can arm them with the coping mechanisms, that positive mindset, the reframing, all these little things that are like free, that really don't cost any money, that are easy to implement, like walks in the park and sunshine.
Yeah.
That those
Yeah.
You don't need a master class for that stuff. But I think today we're so focused on hacks and things having to be so quick and so fast. And sure, there are ways that we can do things that can speed up the timeline, but nothing beats routines and habits like you talked about.
It
Choices
is.
you make. You're sitting there in the grocery aisle and you're looking at 2 drinks, and you have a bottled water, you have flavored water, and you have a Mountain Dew. You may not think that moment of decision making could have huge impacts on your mental health, but replicate that times 100 a day, and you make the Mountain Dew decision all day long. You wonder why you can't sleep. You wonder why you're short tempered. You wonder why teachers are telling you to go see a doctor because you look out the window, like Seth. We didn't ask about how much sugar he was taking. We didn't do any of that stuff.
No.
I didn't know any better, Greg. I was a dad that was coaching, and I was making money, and I was consumed about myself and impressing people. It's like, man, I would just give anything to go back to that moment that teacher said that. And I would just look at her and say, man, you know what? You know what's wrong with you is you're telling kids you want to take this out of them. I'm telling you, we need to put it in them. I don't want to take it out of my son. He's not a werewolf. Leave him alone. I love you, Seth. Let's go figure out ways we can take what you have and make it your superpower.
Yeah.
We don't do that today. And I have to take that to my grave. For anybody listening to this, I'm not telling you if your kids are on Adderall, take them off it. I'm not a doctor. I'm telling you my story. And that's all I can do. So I do want to preface that and make sure that people understand I'm not telling anyone to take any drug or get off any drug. That's your doctor's position. So
wow.
That's my
Jeff,
public service announcement.
No, I love it. This is so powerful. I knew it was going to be good. I had no idea it was.
I wish I was there in studio. I'd give you a big man hug, man.
Oh, dude, and I would take it. We talked about that. Yeah. You're part of my journey in becoming more vulnerable and authentic and embracing that. Well, I guess it's what the getting in touch with the feminine side.
Yeah.
And look, I didn't laugh like that. I mean, like, I'm dead serious about this stuff. I am on that journey with you, and you were part of the early, when you and I met, that was the beginning of the early part of my journey and that discovery. And I'm
Little
super
did we
grateful
know, right?
Yeah.
Little did we know.
No, man.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
No, and this is,
awesome.
I got to be honest. I got a feeling this is the beginning of something for you and I.
You think?
I'm following up after this.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm not just saying that. Look, it's near and dear to my heart what you're working on. I've been an advocate for abused children for many, many years, and in groups like, anyway.
Yeah, I understand.
And so, with suicide, I mean, look, we've got all of this lost, or these opportunities that happened for us to be able to go out there and try to make the world a better place and take adversity and create impact out of it. You're doing it. I'm doing it.
Yeah. And we have to watch out. We have to look out for ourselves, Greg, because as you well know, the highest suicide rate percentage year over year is you and me, man.
100%.
White, middle-aged men.
Well,
my neighbor down the street, New Year's Eve, killed himself, 59 years old, Hall of Fame football coach. He was on the Miami Dolphins staff years back in the 80s. 59. Marriage broke up. There's a lot of other things. Took a gun in it, like the shed, like you talked about, and killed himself. 59. So it's all around us. So if you and I don't take care of ourselves first, we're no good to our kids, right?
I wasn't going to take us there, but listen to this statistic. I am 3 times, being the child of a paternal suicide, I'm 3 times more likely to die by suicide than other people who haven't experienced this. And I was talking with this professor out of Johns Hopkins, and I was trying to figure out what the statistics are for 2. I said, because if I'm 3 times more likely to die by suicide of being the child of 1 paternal suicide, what are the numbers? And she said, well, it's pretty rare air. There's not a lot of data, but I would believe that they're not less. They're going to be higher, right?
Certainly.
And I wake up every single day in that not today moment I told you about. I look in the mirror and I say, not today, right? Not today to all of it, to the addiction, to suicide, to any of the cycles that I'm going to break, so that my sons aren't telling stories about me on podcasts as my legacy.
That's very powerful.
Yeah, that's my not today moment. Yeah. That's my why. That's what, why I get up every day, and that other people don't have to live through what I went through with my dad, who took his own life because that's what he didn't think there were any other options. He wouldn't be a burden on us, and I didn't know in 2010 what I know now, and I didn't have access to the tools that I have access to. So that doesn't have to be a reality for people. And I'm trying to create as much awareness and as many tools and options as possible so that people can say, yes, I can age with grace and vitality and dignity and all those other things. But to your point, it's work. You got to wake up, and it's a game of inches. It's a game of incremental advances every single day by saying bottled water, not Mountain Dew, by saying, just making good choices. And look, I'm one of those guys who I'm not militant about this.
I'm not either.
If I want to eat ice cream on the weekend, I'm going to do it. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm just not going to eat it every day. Right. And I know that I'm putting inflammation in my body, basically. I know that, but I'm fit. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. I'm going to do all the things I need to do to sort of offset it, if you will. But I'm also going to enjoy things. So I'm not one of those guys that gets all militant about it. But I love this, man. Adversity to impact. That's what this is about.
Yeah. And I think when people are kind of dissecting all this and they're replaying this and they go back and rewatch it, because I'm gonna watch this later and I'll pick up some great nuggets, because I need to do a better job listening to you tell your story. So when I rewatch this, I'll listen a lot better.
We'll do it again.
Yeah. I'm going to have my podcast. I think I'm going to start it up in January. I just had so much fun because I just envy you. I use the same recording studio you use, and I miss it. I miss meeting people like you every day. It's
having
just
conversations,
so
man.
Yeah,
and just learning.
It is, because I listen to podcasts obsessively when I drive to Chicago, which is 4 hours away. I can catch all these, and I like to randomly switch it up. So I've got a pool of 10. Some challenge my thinking. I'll listen to podcasts about, religion and things like that, because I'm agnostic. So I don't want to be in an echo chamber every day. Just listen to what I believe in all the time. And I pick up a few things, and, it's these podcasts and what you're doing are just, are awesome. I'm honored to be here. I'm available if anyone wants to talk, offline.
Yeah. How do we get a hold of you?
It's Jeff@brightnapp.com. So JEFF at BRIGHTNAPP.com. I don't say no to anything. So if someone emails me, I'll respond. If someone calls me, it's I remember when I was just starting out and I reached out to, Greg or Ron or somebody I really looked up to, and they responded. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I look up to this guy. It's now I have a chance to kind of be, in a little way, someone that looks up to me because I've done some things with adversity in my life. No means do I think I'm this tremendous role model, but if somebody just starting a nonprofit or somebody just lost their child last week to overdose wants to talk to somebody, I'll crawl to your house. I'll meet with anybody.
That's humanity. We need more of it. No, these things are awesome because of people like you and guests like you, and being able to have these kinds of conversations. I can't wait to listen to this back. And I mean, you had so much wisdom in there and so many moments that I'm honored. Thank you. I'm looking forward to our next conversation, whether it's online or off. I've got ideas just swirling around my head.
Yeah. Well, I want to learn more about, if this was my podcast, I'd be learning a lot about what you do, what the longevity whole idea behind that. I understand the CEO part because you made some great metaphors before we got on air about you're the CEO of your life. You're kind of the boss of your own, everything in your life. It's
it's a reframing, like you talked about.
Longevity, just mindset. Like you said, it's when I filled out your form, you said if you could live to be, what was it, 150?
Yeah.
I think my response was, it's not the years, it's the quality of the years. I'd rather live to 100 and have ridiculously phenomenal moments than live to last 30, in a nursing home with tubes up me.
No. Yeah. And I love that you're thinking that way, right? And that's that thing is, most people think, if I could live to 150,
I'll take it.
We got to get we got to get the functional decline part sorted out before we get to there,
Yeah. Well, let me know what I can do to help you and support you. And I want to share all this and ask all the people that follow Living Undeterred and Brighton. And, I'm really curious, and don't want to spend any time in this because I know we're wrapping this up, but where the longevity idea can be implanted in young adults to get them to start thinking about this. Because if I could find that little nugget and put it on our app, oh man, my legacy gets just further cemented.
With your resources and with mine, let's figure it out together.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. Let's figure it out, because it's near and dear to me too.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I'm in.
I love this. Passion, purpose plus passion. Right. Say it
Purpose
again.
becomes passion when it gets, I'm sorry. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal.
Purpose
So
becomes passion when it gets personal.
Purpose, passion, personal. Purpose,
Got it.
passion, personal. Yeah.
Will in there. Jeff, thank you so much. Have a great day. I'm holding this mic up. My stand started falling right in the middle of this damn thing. So look at it. I'm like, so
I didn't even notice that. I just thought you
doing
had
this.
a good relationship with your microphone there.
It's been like, I think, I didn't crank it down tight enough.
It's all good.
So I've just been holding it. Anyway, thank you so much, brother.
All right. Love you, man.
Love you too, man. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Bye-bye. Oh, okay. We got to stop.